This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up and welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions from YouTube, Twitter, and answer them here in video format. We're just going to get started with the first question from Ian, who says, hey Q, if the Browns go out there and get embarrassed by the 49ers like they did against Baltimore, do you think Stefanski is officially on the hot seat? Let's be honest here. I've said this in the offseason. I'll continue to say this. Stefanski, like, it depends on what you mean by the hot seat. Like, is he on the hot seat to get fired this year? No, he's not going to get fired in the middle of the season. I'd be very surprised if he gets fired in the middle of the season. But if you're talking about hot seat fired at the end of the season, he's been on the hot seat all year. This is the year where they want production. This is the year where they've kind of gone all in. And this is the year where, things are going to fall. If changes aren't made or if wins aren't produced, this is a year where expectations are high. And when expectations are high, it doesn't matter who you are, how many years you've been with the team, you got to deliver. And if you don't deliver, we know where that goes. We know where this goes in the NFL. JPEG Tyler says, you ever thought about a separate channel for gaming? I've heard you talk about games before. I think it would be fun, maybe during the off season when it's slower. Yeah, I just don't know if I have the bandwidth for something like that. And honestly, like, I'm not good enough or a frequent enough gamer to be really doing a gaming channel. Like, I'm a casual, you know what I mean? Like, I'll play every once in a while, or if my homeboys are online, I'll play with them. But I'm not like on the game every day. My PS5 might turn on like 3 times a month at most. And half the time I'm playing Madden or I'm about to stream for Patreon on it. So yeah, I'm not the most avid gamer in the world. So I don't think that that's really going to be something that I pursue. But I'll play Madden on Patreon. I'll definitely do some NCAA on Patreon once that comes out. I'm all excited about that. But as far as like a dedicated gaming channel, I'm just not that much of a gamer, to be honest with you. Spark says, yo, Q copped a Coward Suck shirt the other day. Appreciate that. I've heard the rumors of the potential of us landing another free agent splash in either Aaron Jones, Jerry Jeudy, or JT. Which one of these would you like the most and would fit the best? And is there something that you have your eye on the most? And would it even matter if Stefanski fails to use them to their potential? Appreciate it. All right. We need to have an intervention. We need to have intervention, Browns fans. We are obsessed. We are obsessed with adding pieces. And look, the front office hasn't helped this obsession because they've been adding pieces. But we're getting to a point to where we can't keep, and I'm gonna use a metaphor. I'm gonna use a food metaphor. So follow me. At some point, we can't keep getting carry out. That's what we're doing, Browns fan. Oh, this ain't there. That ain't there. We ain't got this ingredient. All right, we ain't gonna cook nothing. We gonna get some carry out. At some point, we gotta cook with what's in the kitchen. All right. And what I mean by that is your roster is just not going to be perfect. The expectation that you're going to have a perfect roster is ridiculous. And the expectation that you need a perfect roster to succeed offensively is ridiculous. The Kansas City Chiefs, far from a perfect roster. The Baltimore Ravens, far from a perfect roster. The Buffalo Bills, far from a perfect roster. But they figure out a way to make it work. At some point, Kevin's going to have to cook up an offense with what he has in the cabinet. You can't just replace Jed Wills, right? The reason you can't replace him, It's because you don't have another left tackle on this team, and you don't have money to waste to have Jed Wills just sit here and be a backup, because nobody's going to trade for him when he has his 5th-year option. Jonah Williams going to get moved. Look at the lack of players that get traded, or how hard it is to trade somebody on a 5th-year option. It ain't happening for Jed, right? Not if he continues to play like this. He has to play better in order to get traded from his 5th year. And if he plays better, that solves some of the problem. So to be honest with you, no, we can't do none of this. We like, maybe you sound like a vet like Aaron Jones if he's available, but we're not trading. We're not getting no big name, man. That's not going to save this team. What's going to save this team is being able to figure out how we're going to cook with what we got. All right. Right now, my fear of Kevin so far is like, hey, if the offensive line ain't perfect, if the wide receivers ain't on time, if the quarterback ain't on time and on sync with them, then does the offense actually work? Like, is it that fragile? Right? Is it like a clock? Like you move one gear out of place and the whole thing's broken? It can't be that fragile, right? NFL offense has to be able to tick, even if a gear's broke, right? Oh, we don't got good running backs. It has to be able to tick. Oh, we don't have the best offensive line. It has to be able to tick. We don't have the best receiver. It has to be able to tick. And the reason you pay $230 million to get Deshaun Watson and you trade 3 first-round picks for him is because you believe that this is the kind of quarterback that can have the offense ticking even if something's broken. Right? That was the whole problem with Baker Mayfield. That's why we were told and sold, and why I was like, hey, there's a ceiling on this team with Baker Mayfield, because the issue with the dude like him is that everything has to be perfect in order to get the most out of him, or in order to get anything out of him. The second one thing goes wrong, the offensive line's a little bit worse. The Nick Chubb's not there. The wide receivers aren't on time. The second one of those things fall out of gear, whole offense destroyed. It cannot be like that. So at some point, we got to stop looking outside for solutions, and we have to look inside for these solutions. Jed Wills getting beat inside, we got to figure out a way to slow that down. We got to figure out a way to mitigate that damage. You don't love what the wide receivers are producing, you got to find a way to make something happen with what you got. What more do we need? It's not like this roster's terrible. They got to find a way to make it work. You know what I mean? We every time something goes wrong, we out here asking to go to McDonald's to get a new one. At some point, we got to fix these problems. Can't just replace them with new pieces. And that's where the Browns are. So no, Aaron Jones ain't going to save you. Jerry Jeudy ain't going to save you. You're going to have the same problem with them that you have right now. You got to find a way to be able to work with what you got. That's the difference between the great teams and the teams. The teams that have one good season and the teams that have 12. That's the difference. The teams that have all the good seasons, they're the ones that figure out how to continue to have enough with what they got. The teams that don't have a lot of good seasons are the ones that need a perfect everything in order to just be all right. Dobie says, could you explain to fans how difficult it is to move from right to left tackle, the opposite hand in the dirt, and have a different kick leg, hand play, etc. in general? It's basically like playing offensive line mirrored. If you had enough reps, your muscle memories are just never going to be right. And I'm going to be honest with you, with all the Jed Wills should flip back to right tackle people. Jed Wills' issue right now are twofold. One, he doesn't run his arc well. Two, he gets beat inside way too easily. I don't believe mirroring his hand placement to what they were 4 years ago is going to help him. I don't think him kicking off the opposite hand and leg is going to help him. It could exacerbate the problem. You can't move a left tackle to right tackle and expect him to be fine just because he played left tackle. You just can't. That could be a bigger problem than it's worth. Look at Jonah Williams. It ain't working out for them right now. So Yeah, this whole move jet to right and then just flip over Dewan to left. That's not a reality. One, Dewan's never played left tackle in at any time. Like I don't even think he played high school in left tackle. He's not a left tackle. He's a right tackle. He's always played right tackle. He's a right tackle. He's a really good one, I think. Eventually he'll be really good. But he's a right tackle, not a left tackle, which is fine, right? These days, right tackle, left tackle, they're pretty equal. But Jed has to be assisted by Deshaun. Jed has to be assisted by Kevin. Jed has to be assisted by this offense. Again, every team has bad players that start. Every team has holes in their starting lineup. The good teams are the one to figure out how they're going to mitigate those holes. So, and it's not going to be by doing these Madden solutions where you just keep swapping players in and out in order to see if their overall is going to go up. The way that you figure that out is you got to get the most out of the guys that you have. Justin Coffer with the next question says, hey, Q, I know it's been brought up a lot by a lot of people, but I want a more specific answer that I haven't heard yet. I hear people trying to defend Kevin in his in-game adjustments, but I can't even tell you what the changes are made at halftime are. I always watch your film breakdowns and want to know what halftime adjustments were made with DTR. Now, this is like a hard one to really answer, right? And I think that's the reason you haven't gotten a specific answer, because anybody who tells you a super specific answer is probably lying to you, because there's a misconception about like halftime adjustments. Like sometimes they're little changes, right? They don't go in there and draw up a new game plan at halftime. Halftime's like 10 minutes. Now they do stuff. I know some players like they don't even do nothing at halftime, and that sometimes, if depends on who you are, that might be the case. But a lot of the work is done on the sidelines. And, the adjustments aren't something that you're going to really see that much of a visual difference in. It's just the change in what the progressions are. Okay, when we see this, we're going to change on this look that they're giving us, that 3 high shell. Instead of having the progression be the slot and then the 2, the Z is a 2, we're going to switch it Z1 slot 2. It's that kind of stuff. It's just changing where the quarterback's eyes are. It's changing how fast you're going to get out of there. It's adjusting, adding some things to the call sheet that you might have worked on just in case if you need it because you anticipated some problems during the work week. It's small stuff like that are the true adjustments. And whether we're talking about Sean McVay or Kevin Stefanski or Matt Canada, you're not going to see a drastically different technique out of halftime. That's kind of been a myth propagated on sports movies and sports talk radio. The adjustments are made, but these are small adjustments, changes. Like defenses will be like, hey, we're not going to follow this anymore. We're not going to chase this anymore, or something like that. Like, it's small stuff. It's not these giant changes in defensive philosophy most of the time. It's usually smaller stuff. And Kevin definitely makes adjustments. No coach doesn't make adjustments, and they make adjustments in the game. But again, I ask you, Justin, look at how DTR played in that game and tell me what adjustments you think would have made him play better. The only adjustment that I think could have helped him, to be honest with you, was adjusting him to the bench. Like, that's the only adjustment. But if they weren't going to do that, then no amount of changing progression is going to save that kid when he's having that bad of a day, to be honest with you. Ghost Rider says, aren't the major offensive issues the function of major injuries, too many turnovers, offensive line execution? I think they can avoid more season-ending injuries, execute better, and cut the turnovers down. They will be fine. Yes, I agree with you, but also the issues don't come out of nowhere. They're not fumbling the ball for no reason. They're not executing on offensive line for no reason. They're not, well, the season-ending injuries, those are random, right? But they're not executing at a high level for no reason. These things are all happening for a reason. The turnovers. Why are these turnovers happening so often? Offense looks weird sometimes. Like, it's not that it looks weird as in they're running weird stuff, even though sometimes they do that. But it just doesn't look in sync, you know, and when it's not in sync, somebody's going to be a little ahead. Somebody's going to be a little late, pops a ball up in the air, interception. You know, Nick Chubb being out, causing other people to run the ball, you're going to get some fumbles. So yes, there, you can blame it on injuries, you can blame it on turnovers, you can blame it on the offensive line, but at the end of the day, these things don't just pop up out of nowhere. They are created, especially the turnovers and the offensive line issues. So it's more of an execution. It's more about figuring out what's going wrong here, you know? Tom says, do you think the Browns overreacted to Chubb's injury when they wanted to run a committee instead of just sticking with Ford in the usual scheme? I honestly think they underreacted. And what I mean by underreacted is they didn't quite understand the extent to which Nick Chubb was really, really making up for a lot of things. Davita says, Quincy, I love Kevin Stefanski, but does the league have him figured out? His offense went from being highly successful and highly scoring on every possession to relying on a bunch of trick plays and completely choking in the red zone. What's the problem? Now, again, small sample size is the first thing, right? Because we're basing most of this evaluation, I'm guessing, Davita, is based off of Cincinnati week 1 in the rain and Pittsburgh week 2. Right? Because none of this is really applicable for the week 3 game. Small sample size. The same way I'm not going to come here and lose my mind when Deshaun Watson has a good game. I'll be happy as hell, but I'm not about to sit here and put him back in the MVP race after a couple of good starts. You know, it's the same way that you just got to wait for more information before we really know what's going on, to be honest, right? It's just early on. They're trying a bunch of stuff. They're figuring out what works, and we'll see what that leads to. Hopefully they experiment a little bit more and more successfully. Jalan says, is the offense outdated? I will tell you this. I don't think it's outdated per se, but I do think that it could have some newer features, right? It's Kevin Stefanski's offense right now. And again, right now, small sample size. We'll see more as the season goes on. And hopefully I'm wrong. But Kevin Stefanski's offense is kind of like an iPhone XS. Or iPhone 11 or whatever, right? It's not out of date. It does some of the stuff you want it to do, but it ain't the new iPhone, right? Like it ain't the new iPhone. It ain't last year's iPhone. And yeah, you got the updates and stuff, and you get that, but you ain't got none of those cool features you see all your friends on, right? We out here watching Shane Steichen run that iPhone 16 offense, and he got all this RPO going on with the motion coming off the back, and he's just running Anthony Richardson. It looks fun. And then you look over at Eric Bieniemy, you know, he got that iPhone 14 Pro, like he running all this stuff. And then you look at Kevin, you know, he got the XS, you know, and it's cool. It's cool, you know, it still works and it's fine, but you know, you want some of the bells and whistles. I hope that made sense. I really do. Next question is from Gagan S, who says, do you think it's malpractice on the offensive staff to use Elijah Moore in a more gimmicky gadget way, the way they have? No, I don't think it's malpractice. Look, the anger of the Elijah Moore end arounds gadget plays, this is hindsight 2020. Because a lot of us were atting me every time they saw that, telling me how excited you are that they're finally putting him in the Debo Samuel role and he gonna be the guy to get those end arounds. We was taking all these shots at Anthony Schwartz about how trash he is at end arounds and how Elijah Moore gonna be the end around guy and all of this. So I can't fault them for having the same dream that I was having about Elijah Moore and how they can get the ball in his hands and be really explosive with them. They tried that. It's not working. I'm not going to judge them on the attempt. I always encourage the attempt. But, if they make the attempt fails and they continue to force the attempt, that's where it starts to become a problem. But that's going to be it for Q&A. You guys have a great day. Have an even better night.